Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is Joseph Patterson. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the pay hike and the CBDC, kind of showing you the link between the two of them and ensuring that you understand the game that is being played and what we need to do about it. So I know it's a bit impromptu, but welcome to all of you who are on so far. I see Junior Crowther is already on, and a number of you are tuning in just now as I speak. Hope you had a good Labor Day, and I know you're all still suffering from shock and awe in terms of what the government and opposition and the PSOJ oligarchs have tried to pull off so far. But there's a lot to it, eh? And we're going to talk about it today and get to the bottom of it a little bit more. Welcome, Lenward Duffus. Good to see you on as well. The UIC is having a big event coming up on June 10th. I'm going to share with you more about that later on. And if you were looking closely, you might have seen our Vice President, Miss Jasmine Powell, out on the hustings, supporting the protesters on the ground there in Jamaica. I am out of the island right now. I'm still in Canada. You know, I did the town hall meeting last week in Toronto, and the week before that I was in London. Seem to have a connection problem. So the connection problem followed me all the way to Canada. Looked like the connection problem followed me. All right, Seema, I'm back with you now. The powers that be have found me all the way over here in. All right, Seema, I'm back with you now in Canada. I can't seem to escape this problem, eh? I'm here in Toronto right now. As I was saying before, I have been in the UK the last 2 weeks ago or so. I was in the UK, London. We did our town hall meeting there. And then I did the town hall meeting last Sunday here in Toronto. And we had a really, really good outcome, and persons wanted to meet again. So we're having another meeting here in Toronto on Sunday before I head out for Jamaica. So I miss all the protests on the ground in Jamaica, but VP Powell is on the ground out there. Big up Miss Powell, Jasmine Powell, our VP for the county of Surrey, who's been at the front line in leading the charge for the protests that's going on the ground right now. So if you see Miss Powell, please give her a shout out for the work that she's doing there. I want to say hats off as well to our chairman, Mr. Winston Wright, who's helping us with the planning and organizing for June 10th. There's also, well, the team, quite a bit of, members on the team working. Naika Williams all the time in the background there as treasurer and admin assistant. Anyways, our topic for today is the pay hike and the CBDC and why you need to be careful that they don't trick you in the process. So I want to turn our attention to that right now and kind of dig into that. Now, one of the demands that you would have heard made by us, the UIC, and others is for a job description for our politicians. And if they want to get a pay raise, they should have a job description that we hold them accountable for, don't you think? But how could we have gone for 80 years, 8 decades, and our politicians do not have a job description? And the Prime Minister is telling us now that he's going to, put something in place. By the way, he had promised this some 7 years ago, and we still don't see it yet. But you can't blame him alone. It's a system. And they have gone for 80 years now without job descriptions. So what were we paying them for? What were we paying them for if they didn't have a job description? What is the basis on which they were being paid? But let's think about what their job description might look like right now, the one that they're operating under right now. What is the job description of an elected politician right now? Not the one that they're going to write and tell us because we have come out and said what we did. But what is the job description now? The answer really depends on the system of governance under which that politician is elected. So here in Jamaica, no ordinary person gets elected unless they join one of two well-established gangs. And I call them gangs for a good reason. Party is a nice euphemistic term. These are two gangs. They operate like gangs, they function like gangs, and they have outcomes similar to gangs. So in Jamaica, if you want to be an elected politician, you know that your only real way in is by joining one of two gangs, which is why the UIC is such an anomaly. Because when we started the UIC, we did not start it as a political party. We started it as a political movement dedicated to educating and empowering Jamaicans to understand how the political system works and how they can change it with something better. Now, in Jamaica, since you can't really hope to win in the political arena unless you join one of the two established gangs, this means a politician so elected is accountable to the gang leadership, not the people. So don't be fooled. When you elect your MP, you're not electing your MP. You're participating in a process where you are authenticating somebody to say that they are your representatives, but in effect, they're representing the gang to which they belong, and those who lead that gang, and those who own that gang. Therefore, the unwritten job description would read something like this. As a member of this gang, you will do whatever it takes to help the gang win elections at all costs. You will protect the secrets of the gang under all circumstances. You will echo the gang's narrative to keep the public in the dark. You will cover for your fellow gang members at all times. Any disloyalty by you will be met with severe consequences. You must put your tribe first at all times if you wish to maintain your position. If you play by the rules, you will be handsomely rewarded. That is the current job description of those who occupy Gordon House, those who sit in what we call our parliament, those who control our government. That is their current unwritten job description, a job description which is not published for you or anyone else to see. But these are the codes that they live by. This is how they operate. So when you hear them talking about job description now, because we're pushing for that, they mean they're going to put together something, a document, which is palatable for public consumption. Yeah? And so I want to help you unmask that system, fully understand that system, and work through how we're going to change that. The UIC understand this system of politics, and we're therefore advocating for a complete change of the system from what it is now into what it should be. But there's no way that those who colluded with their foreign masters and their local masters to give us this system will want to change it anytime soon. So what you're going to see is a deliberate attempt to continue the same system by any means necessary, even if it means adjusting their public statements to pacify the mood of the populace. So after 80 years at this stage, these two gangs or colonial parties would not want to give up a multi-billion-dollar scam that has worked so well for so long. It has allowed them to enrich themselves at the expense of our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our mothers, our fathers, and now you and me. Most of the laws on our books are colonial laws. The Constitution itself is a colonial constitution. Almost every regulations are the dictates of their foreign masters. They do not print or control our dollar. Our economy is run by the IMF and other foreign lenders. Our education and healthcare system is a sham. Our highways, hotels, and industries are owned and operated by foreigners. Our government is therefore weak, inept, and incompetent. It merely engages in a cut and paste approach. Whatever is given to them, they just cut and paste it and say, this is our laws, our regulations, our legislations. They're mere puppets and parrots of other world leaders. They have no vision, no ambition, except, of course, to enrich themselves at your expense and mine. So why are we paying them? Why are we paying them when they're really just occupying the seats? They're not doing anything meaningful. So it would be interesting to see what they come back with and say, here's our job description. And it's going to be a bunch of highfalutin terms, which will mean nothing in the end. And it will not be linked in any way to clear performance metrics and measurements. And so the question is, why are we paying them? Do you know the answer? Why are we paying these politicians when they don't even have a job description that you and I know about? Why are we paying them? Good evening, Roundtable Talk TV. Good evening, Crystal. Good evening, Donnery King. Big up Clive Morrison from UK. Big up N. Smith. So why are we paying them? I want to answer that question. Why are we paying them? Do you know the answer? I'll tell you why. We're paying them because we're forced to pay them by the PSOJ oligarchs. That's why we're paying these two parties and the politicians they have in the house, because the PSOJ oligarchs forced us to pay them. That might sound strange. You're saying, why? How? What do you mean, Mr. Patterson, that the PSOJ oligarchs forced us to pay them? Yes, the PSOJ oligarchs are forcing us to pay these weak, inept, and incompetent misleaders, or nothing but dressed up looters and moochers. How does the PSOJ oligarchs force us to pay these fake leaders, you asked? They force us to pay them by paying them to fool us. Isn't that amazing? The PSOJ oligarchs pays them to fool us. They give them billions of dollars for them to fool us into electing them. Yes, the PSOJ oligarchs or the big money elites fund these two gangs to rip us off by buying the votes of those they have kept poor and destitute through low wages, minimum wages, and even contrived unemployment. They fail 70% of our high school graduates every year, and by extension, create a base of uneducated, unsophisticated, and even unemployable pool of voters to keep them in power. Yes, it is the PSOJ oligarchs that are really in power. Andrew and Mark, or the JLP and PNP, are just their puppets. So when you vote PNP or JLP, you're always voting for the PSOJ oligarchs that funds them and controls them. Cliff Hughes suggested I might be too, I might not be too smart to be telling you this, because he probably thinks the UIC needs money from the oligarchs to run our campaign. But the UIC doesn't want to be funded or controlled by the PSOJ oligarchs. If we were to do that, then you'll have three of the same thing. They would be in control of us, and they'll be in control of the other two. The UIC, on the other hand, is inviting the Jamaican people to fund and control the UIC. That's what makes us a grassroots people movement. That's what makes us the People's Party, the Education Party. The UIC is the reincarnation of Marcus Garvey's. We are the embodiment of his mission to unite, to liberate, and to empower the people. And we shall do this by providing a system of good governance while uncovering for you the 80-year-old multi-billion-dollar fraud or scam of the PSOJ oligarchs and their media and their two colonial parties that they have used to not only block the UIC from the national consciousness, but to ensure that no matter what we say, you almost never see it on radio or television. No matter where we go, you almost never see it on radio or television. If they can't find something negative to attach to us, like calling us, anti-vaxxers or something, they can't get to do that. Then none of our pronouncements, none of our positions are relayed to the Jamaican people. Many Jamaicans still don't know that the UIC exists. Some may have seen us one time or the other in some shape or form and quickly forget, because out of sight is out of mind. And so they're not seeing us. They're not hearing from us. So they think we don't exist. If we walk downtown, put on a rally somewhere, they don't show up. They don't film it. They don't carry it on the news. If we put out a press release and say something about an issue, you'll hear from everybody else before you hear from the UIC. You'll hear from, in fact, you won't hear from the UIC normally, but you'll hear from every little organization or any other group or person except the UIC. The power of this trio is immense. The power of money, media, and partisan politics is tremendous. It is about using the wealth of the labor and land which was stolen from our ancestors to control and keep us as wage slaves. Those three things, The money that was generated and has been generationally built by those who exploited our people, combined with the media that they've been able to use that money to buy, and the parties that they've been able to create and manage and control. They're using those three things effectively to deny you, to deny us our fundamental rights. They're using our own money stolen from us to own the media and the two parties to mislead us. They're using the media to steer the narrative in whatever direction they wish. You might recall during the pandemic how hard they tried to censor any other views, and they were quite aggressive. So they will use the media to steer the narrative in whatever direction they wish in order to distract us so that they can deceive us and every day work on extracting our wealth from us. They use the two parties as a form of controlled opposition to give us the illusion of choice. They divide us into two tribes. They distract us with all kinds of gimmicks and schemes, like free this or free that, while they write laws, enact regulations, and set up institutions to rob us blind. They legalize the theft of our resources and use their fraudulently gained authority to sell off our assets to whomever they will. Whoever is willing to engage with them in any form of scamming the Jamaican people, they will do it. And of course, they make it legal. They make it look official. So whenever their foreign masters come along and promise them, say, billions of dollars, if they will force, bribe, or trick us into taking an injection, for example, they will gladly and vigorously undertake the mission without regard for the consequences to our lives, to our livelihoods, or the impact on our children or our children's education. That is why no matter how much we objected, they would not relent to push forward their foreign masters' NIDS agenda. They will go through any court action, go around any form of opposition to get that through. The same thing for the injection, the same thing for the CBDC. That is why they also did not blink in turning over the ownership of our central bank, the Bank of Jamaica, to the banking cartels, along with billions of our tax dollars, which most of you don't know about. You don't even know that you should be upset about it. You don't even know what it means. But they told you they're making the bank independent. Yes, independent of us. And so today, you don't see Jamaicans in the street protesting because the bank has been given away, because they don't understand. They don't know what it means. But yes, your bank has been given away. Your banking sector has been given away. Your right to banking has been given away. Your control over your banking sector has been given away. And not just that, your tax dollars was given away with it. And it's all done in a way that suggests that it's legal. Where was your representative in all of this? Did you hear from one of your MPs saying this is wrong? Did they come out in the news media? Did you see it on the news saying this is wrong? No, you didn't. Because money, media, and politics, controlled by the same people, steers the narrative and keeps you ignorant of the facts. And that is why they will stop at nothing to enforce the central bank digital currency, which is the final piece of the puzzle to completely surrender our sovereignty as a nation to the globalist agenda. You will no longer be able to buy or sell or do anything without their permission. They will be able to turn on and off your access to your hard-earned money, whether you like it or not. And the next time they want you to take an injection or to do anything you may not want to do. They will simply lock you off from your money and from the economy until you comply with their wishes or their commands. This CBDC will not only affect you, interestingly enough, it will also affect every single politician, including the Prime Minister. Because remember, the Prime Minister, like the opposition leader, and all the other members of Parliament and senators are puppets. They're parrots, doing whatever they're paid by the local or foreign special interests to do. The Prime Minister knows what is coming. He might not be the smartest person in the room, but he knows what is coming. And I'm going to explain this to you now. The Prime Minister knows ultimately what the CBDC means. He too will be under heavy manners when the globalist world government agenda kicks in. No politician will be able to steal the way they used to steal, because every transaction will be traceable. Every transaction will be monitored. And so the politicians will be vulnerable as well. And the powers that be will be able to exempt them as they see fit, but they will know exactly what they have done. So they'll be able to take down anyone they wish to take down and put up anyone they wish to put up. So it means that politicians have to change their approach to stealing. They have to find a new way to extract your wealth from you. They can't just simply rely on the proven methods that they've been employing, the ones that the former education minister is accused of, the ones that we heard about around Petrojam, the light bulb scandal, and all the others. With the CBDC, the same knife that stick goat, stick sheep. So while it is going to put us, the people, under a serious surveillance system in order for us to be controlled by the powers that be, it is also going to control our politicians, not to our best interest. There might be some residual impact, but not to our best interest. But it will nevertheless restrict the way that politicians are able to steal from us. Because remember, money will no longer be something you can hide. You can't hide the way you get it. You can't hide the way you spend it. At least not from those who are in charge. You can hide it from me or from somebody else who don't know, but the powers that be will have full insights. They can trace every dollar, every penny. What does this mean to Andrew Holness, Mark Golden, and to others? How will this affect them? How will this impact them? Let me explain to you how, and how it affected the Prime Minister. This is what is behind the big pay hikes that you have seen recently. The big pay hike is an attempt to legalize and crystallize or make more acceptable the theft of your tax dollars. The Prime Minister and others realize that they won't be able to steal the way they used to steal before, or misappropriate the way they used to misappropriate before. There will be a big challenge here. So they needed to increase their pay significantly to help to cover for the impact of the loss that they will endure in the future when the CBDC kicks in. Let's look closely at how this affects the Prime Minister in the first instance. You might recall that P.J. Patterson, a former Prime Minister, a PNP Prime Minister, just before he left office, he unjustly and wickedly established a law I think in 2006 or so, when he was leaving office. He established a law that says every former prime minister must get as his or her pension the same amount as the salary of the current prime minister. This means that since PJ left office, both him, Mr. Siaga, Mr. Bruce Golden, Portia Simpson, and Andrew Olness were pulling the same amount from the tax coffers. So we were paying we were paying 5 prime ministers. We still are paying 4 because one of them recently passed away. So we have been paying 5 prime minister for some time, and now 4, and that number will only diminish if, when they pass away, when one of them pass away, another one. So 5 prime ministers were paying at the previous salary. So Andrew Olness was very much aware of this in his thinking and his planning. So by him putting in place this massive pay hike, Andrew was securing for himself a significant pension payout for the next 40 to 50 years. So let's say he were to have lost the next election. For the next 40 years, if he lived to 90 something, or next 50 years, if he lived to 100, he would be receiving that 25 or 26 or 28 or whatever million it turns out to be at that point in time. He would be guaranteed that big amount of money for the rest of his life. So this would be a really nice padding for him, based on PJ Patterson, the PNP former prime minister, and now a JLP prime minister expanding that by, giving himself more than 200%, in some cases 300% increase. So all of them must have been very, very happy. PJ was happy, Bruce would be happy, Portia would be happy, everybody's happy because Andrew has given them a wonderful gift. Now, of course, he has subsequently now said he's not going to take it and so on. We'll see how that works out. But that must have been a really big factor in his thinking because they think way ahead of us. We're majoring in minors normally. The citizens are not very aware, not very up to date, not following. You're too busy, trying to make ends meet. You don't have time to pay attention to all this detail. But they pay attention because their job is spent on how do they scam the Jamaican people. Now, it doesn't end there, though. It doesn't end at the pension. Andrew also knows that even if he does not lose the next election, with the CBDC in effect, it will be harder for politicians to steal without the electronic eyes of the globalist gods being able to see it. Because remember, the CBDC is not going to be controlled by the Jamaican government. We don't own our bank. We don't even control the Bank of Jamaica. We don't control our monetary policy and fiscal policy. We have no control over our economy. We only have talking heads, figureheads that's, sit in front of everybody, goes on the television, say things, but they're not controlling anything. Nigel Clark is not controlling anything. He's simply doing what he's being told to do by who is in power to tell him to do that. Yeah. And so what we're seeing now is, however, our politicians, while they may not be in control of our government policies in general and the regulations and laws that they're told to implement, they do have control over how they engage in corruption, how they strategize for corruption, how they figure out ways to extract monies from us, or how they get money to fund their next election, whatever tactics and strategy they're going to use. So Andrew knows that even if he does not lose the next election, with the CBDC in effect, there will be constraints, significant constraints on how you steal from taxpayers. You have to find more ingenious ways. And the CBDC makes it really very hard because it's traceable. Therefore, the massive pay hikes are necessary because if you give 63 members of parliament plus others that they have in other areas of the civil service at the top level that they have appointed, you give them big numbers, then you are really legalizing what you have been stealing before. You have now put that together into a nice big legal package. So now you're going to legally, upfront, thief that money. As you know, many politicians do not really do anything. What does your MP do? Really, what does your MP do? What is he doing? Walking around trying to figure out how he's going to get more votes? When the road needs to be fixed, or there's a fire at the dump, or there's some major catastrophe, what does the MP do? They just talk. They just, oh, whatever. What do they really do? They're still at the mercy of whatever funds is allotted to them from the central government, from the cabinet, from the executive branch of government. If they're an MP and their party is in power, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to challenge anything significantly. If they're on the opposition benches, they're going to, yap their mouth a bit. But then when they're elected, no real change. What does your MP really do? What makes an MP a valuable part of society? Don't tell me about representation, because there's no real representation in our parliament. Representing what? What are they representing? When you had the pandemic situation, did they listen to us? Did your representative go to parliament and stand up for you? No. So even though 70% of us said, no, we don't want it, you didn't see 70% of the parliamentarians standing up and saying, no, we don't want it. So your MPs really do nothing. If you consider the time they spend walking up and down trying to get votes, trying to placate you, trying to give people little handouts here and there, some cement, some steel, a zinc. If you consider that representation, then that's something, but that's not representation. That's not the responsibility of an MP. An MP is not there to give handouts to citizens. If your country is run properly, you're going to have a solid economy that allows you to earn money and buy your own cement and your own zinc. MP is not there to go to funerals. If you have a good economy, you have your loved one pass away, you will, family members come together, bury your dead, and, move on. But this whole idea of what is an MP? What does an MP really do? What is a councillor really doing? They walk around and they talk, yes, but then it still comes down to, will central government allot some money to fix the road? All the MPs and the councillors do is get in the way. They get involved in all forms of corruption, giving work out to their friend and company, getting contracts to be approved for people who are not qualified to do the work, and end up giving us substandard roads, substandard water system, lack of proper sidewalks. Do you see any real town planning happening? Do you see careful planning? Go to any community. Do you see careful planning there? Do you see where roads and parks and play areas and community centers? Do you see any careful, serious planning? Do you see any real nice development except in tourist areas or in front of the buildings where you have massively rich and palatial companies? For example, across the Pegasus, you have a lovely Emancipation Park that is nicely maintained, but all of Jamaica is not maintained like that. So only what suits the PSOJ oligarchs, what they want to be attended, is attended to. The vast majority of the country is just left uncared for, unkept, mash up. We build edifices and then just leave them and they crumble. So all this is about is to find a way to channel funds that are about to be lost when the CBDC is fully implemented at the behest of the foreign masters. I wonder if you see what I'm saying. If this is making sense to you, type yes in the comment box if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, type no, so that I can know how you feel about the matter. Don't worry about those who are trying to say bad things about the UIC. That's okay. They have their mission. They're on their mission. They're doing what what they've been sent to do. But we have better things to do. We have to stay focused on what we're doing. We have to stay very focused on what we're doing. And so what they're doing with this salary hike thing is to crystallize, is to legalize, it's to justify, it's not justify, but rather to bring into mainstream what has been happening in the shadows. Yeah. So Andrew acted fast, maybe too fast, maybe without the kind of skills that he needed to act with. And so he has, done what he did. But watch this. It doesn't end there. Now, you saw after a while, the opposition leader came back and decided, he's going to offer 80% of his increase to charity, whichever charity that is. But that's just political theater. Yeah. Mark Golding and the PNP did not stand up against this legalized theft because they want it. He understands the game. He knows that when the people vote for the PNP and possibly elect his party, and he becomes prime minister, then he will get the benefit. So he's not really against this. He's just trying to play the politics of it based on how people have reacted to the situation. So don't be fooled by his offer of 80%. And it's a very weak and foolish offer, because what it really is saying, he is not going to challenge the real thing, and he's not going to ensure that all of his, because he can whip all of his MPs into position like they've done on many other issues and said, we shall stand for this. They could have walked out of parliament. They could have all stood up and say, no, this will not happen. We will not support this. We will not allow this. We will not stand for this. We're completely against it. Instead, he's telling you about 80% of whatever the raise is to give that to the charity. So we must all now go and monitor Mark's salary and see when he gets it each month, who he gives it to. Are they really charity? Has he given it every month? Has he given it to the same people every month or different people? Who are those people? What makes them more qualified to receive it than somebody else? We don't want that kind of leadership. We don't want that kind of leadership. We don't want that kind of leadership. So Mark has failed. But we're not surprised. Likewise, the Andrew Holness belated decision to roll back his salary is nothing but damage control. But you might recall P.J. Patterson did the same thing. Whenever he brought forward policies that the massive people object to, he simply rolls it back and take off the heat. But what the people don't see is the trick that he pulled off. So while we were all excited and up in arms about the pay hike, as we should, what was the government busy doing behind the scenes? During the COVID experience, they brought through many laws and rules that you don't even hear about yet. One of them was the giving away of our central bank and billions with it. And it happened on the quiet. It was in the media, but very quiet in the back pages. Yeah. So they've advanced significantly on many fronts. Things that we never asked them for, nor did they bring to us. For example, did you ever vote for, were you told in the election campaign that the government plans to bring in a central bank digital currency, and therefore when you vote for them, you're going to be getting this? Did you hear that on the campaign trail? Did you hear that they were going to pull off NIDS? Did you hear that on the campaign trail? So who are they representing? I've told you before, they're not representing you. They're not representing us. Your MP doesn't represent you. Your government doesn't represent the people of Jamaica, nor does the opposition. For one, they all say that they pay allegiance to the Constitution, which pays allegiance to the Crown. So obviously, not even there, so they're working for us. So the truth is, Andrew's belated decision to roll back his salary is merely damage control, but the real damage is already done. And while we're up in arms about the hike in their wages, which we should be, they're working steadily to implement the central bank digital currency as they were directed by their foreign masters. And not just the CBDC. There are other nefarious agendas that they're pushing forward, seeping into our culture, seeping into our country, gradually trying to bring forward the change. There are many areas. There are many areas of social change that they want to engineer into our people at the behest of their foreign masters, fully supported by the PSOJ oligarchs, who their only interest is money, profits. They don't care if the entire Jamaican nation is sent to hell in a basket, as long as they are getting a part of the financial pie. Profit before people. That is their objective. So these guys, my friends, they're very good at corruption and at stealing. They're like the scammers you hear about in the newspaper or the news, right? You know, you hear about all those scammers, and they say scammers scam this and scam that. So they're like scammers you hear about in the news, who are good at theft, but unwilling to do really productive work. You see those scammers all over the place? They don't want no work. They don't want to do no real work. They just want to scam. The same thing with our leaders. They're not interested in doing any real work. So no job description is going to transform them. They're not here to do real work. They're here to scam. And so they're going to focus on scamming. And the pay hike was one way of legitimizing their scamming. They just want to be scammers, plain and simple. Nothing less, nothing more. That's all they want to do. So the time has come then for us to take action. The time has come for us to take action. And I so wish the UIC had all the funds in the world that was necessary to do the things. You know, we have to overcome the media. So we need to have more money to overcome the media, to mobilize people, to move troops. Yeah. So that's a challenge. But be that as it may, the UIC is very committed to working with the very limited resources we have to get the job done. Today I got a call from one of my high school friends. This friend of mine from high school, initially, kind of laughed at the UIC, not in a derogatory way or anything, but just, thinking that maybe it was a far-fetched idea and, not going to go anywhere, The last time we probably spoke about it in any serious way was in 2018, I believe. But this friend called me in earnest this morning, saying, Joseph, we're ready now. We're ready. I said, what do you mean? No, man, we'll vote for a dog instead of these two. In other words, that friend of mine from high school now sees the value of the UIC. So there are many persons who have just sat on the sideline and, see the UIC as a novelty. Well, it's not a novelty. The UIC is a serious piece of work. A serious piece of work that has drawn on the resources and strength and commitment and patriotism of a number of persons, self-included. And we have given all that we can to make this movement, this political party, a reality for the Jamaican people. We have worked hard to make this possible. And while others may have scoffed at us and others jeer and some make all kinds of comments and so on, we have kept moving forward and working steadily to this point because we knew that the day would come when the people are finally fed up and ready for change. Now, of course, we can't just bring about that change because the change really depends on you, the people. It's not just a bunch of us getting together and say we have a party and put up 63 candidates and that's the end of it. No, we have to have the support of the people, because we're not going to be owned and controlled by the PSOJ oligarchs. We're not going to do it. So it's one coca that's going to have to fill this basket. It's $25 here, US, that is $10 here, 1,000 Jamaican here, 5,000 Jamaican here, 10,000 Jamaican here, 5 British pound here, 20 British pound there, 25 Canadian, 50 Canadian. It's going to be because we, the people, rise up and own this movement. And then when we're elected now, our hands are not tied by any powerful special interest group that gave us $300, $500, $600 million. Our hands will be tied to the Jamaican people, to do the work of the Jamaican people. So it's time, my friends, for action. It's action time now. That's why the UIC started the We the People campaign for a real republic, to rubbish the fake constitutional reform, to stop the CBDC, to stop the NIDS, and to stop the GLP and PNP from stealing or misappropriating your hard-earned tax dollars. So we are going to ensure that there's a We the People campaign to give us what we the people need and want. So I'm inviting all Jamaicans to join us for a massive We the People Enough is Enough Rise Up rally in Halfway 3 on June 10th, 2023, where I and other speakers will unveil the way forward to a new and better Jamaica with real prosperity for all. So we're going to have a very exciting rally, a peaceful rally, a unifying rally that will bring together Jamaicans from all walks of life, all across the country, to say enough is enough, and to solidify a plan of action to take our country out of the hands of not only these two colonial parties, but those who have funded, owned, and controlled them over the last 80 years. So on June 10th, and you can look out for this flyer, see, right here. So on June 10th, you can book this in your calendar from now. On June 10th, 4 p.m., Mandela Park. Come out and hear the message and be a part of the movement, the collective of people drawn from various civil society groups, drawn from persons who were once JLP, once PNP, persons who were independent like myself, who have never been a part of either, persons who gave up on Jamaica, gave up on the political process, but are now saying the time has come for real change. Enough is enough. They have seen clearly now what these two parties, what the colonial system that they have embraced and forced upon us, what the PSOJ oligarchs have done to us through them. They've seen clearly where this is leading, and they're saying enough is enough, and we're now ready to take back our country. It will be an amazing thing to see a real revolution in Jamaica where we actually take charge of our government for the first time in the history of our people. We did not get independence in 1962. We got tricked in 1962. So those in charge of our government to this day are not representing us. We were tricked. So we have never actually, as a people, taken control of our own government. We have never done that. We have allowed some people to co-opt our government. and call themselves our representative. In 1962, when we became a so-called independent nation, most of us couldn't read or write. Most of us didn't even know what a constitution is. Most of us didn't know what was being done to us. If we did, we would never have allowed them to inflict such a grievous constitution upon us. We would have said, absolutely not. We would have rejected that constitution. We would have rejected that system of governance. But they knew that we were ignorant. They kept us ignorant deliberately. But the time has come for us to change that now. So join me in this We the People Rise Up rally, Halfway Tree, Mandela Park, June 10th, 2023. We're going to send a powerful message to the powers that be that their time is up. It's the people of Jamaica time now. And we are going to chart a new way forward that will give us a new and better Jamaica with real prosperity for all. At this meeting, I will explain how the UIC will make all Jamaicans a property owner. Some people think it's impossible, Some people, what are they talking about? One guy said, I love everything the UIC has said, everything. I agree with all that they have said, except on this one point, them making all Jamaicans a property owner. They can't do that. He doesn't see where it's possible. But let me put it in context for you. This is important. Singapore is 1/15 the size of Jamaica. Singapore is the size of St. Thomas. So, you can fit 15 Singapores into the landmass of Jamaica. You can take Singapore and drop it into Jamaica 15 times. Yeah? Imagine that. Now, Singapore has twice our population, more than twice the population of Jamaica. So there are some 6 million people living in Singapore in a space the size of St. Thomas. Imagine that. There are some 6 million Singaporeans living on an island or a group of islands that is no bigger than the parish of St. Thomas. Yet, they have been able to make 93% of their population property owners. 93% of their population property owners. Now, if we have 15 times the size of Singapore and less than half their population, why can't we make all Jamaicans property owners? Let me expand that thought a little bit more. If we were to bring back all Jamaicans overseas, not that we will, it will be open, but if every Jamaican overseas should return home, we would have no more than about 7 million Jamaicans here. Just slightly bigger than the entire population of Singapore, which lives on an island that is 1/15 the size of Jamaica. It means that we have no problem housing every single Jamaican living abroad and every single Jamaican living at home. The only thing we're missing is the kind of leadership that the politicians of Singapore provided to the people of Singapore. They had a leader and they had leadership and they had a government that puts the people first. So their government focused on how do we enrich the people of Singapore? How do we give them a country that is safe, clean, and orderly? How do we make sure our population is highly educated, highly productive, and therefore able to generate the kind of capital to give them a first world or a first class nation in which to live. Yeah? And so that's the kind of leadership. Now you'll hear them talk about the wages of Singapore politicians. The wages of Singapore politicians are very high. Very, very high. But guess what? That's also quite logical. Their wages are very high because they've provided a very high standard of living for their people. And their wages weren't high all the time. Their wages grew as they grew the economy. And so the UIC is going to adopt a similar model. We're going to make sure that the wages of our political leadership is in tandem with the growth in the quality of life of the Jamaican people, not just GDP, because that can be tricky. You have to make sure the quality of life of the people improve. So on June 10th, when we meet in Halfway Tree at Mandela Park, 4 p.m., I'm going to share with you more about how we're going to make sure that you become a property owner. We're going to return the land that was stolen from your ancestor to you. We're going to replace the ghettos, the garrisons, and the squatter communities with residential spaces that look, smells, and feels like a tourist resort. We're going to stop the death, disease, and destruction caused by bauxite mining. We're going to replace all of that with massive, industrialized, organic farms that's going to make Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. We're going to move away from the idea of having foreigners owning our tourism product in all-inclusive resorts by making all of Jamaica an all-inclusive resort, a place where we, the Jamaican people, have the kind of quality that tourists enjoy right across Jamaica, from east to west, north to south. So from St. Anne to St. Elizabeth, from Anava and St. James and Trelawney to St. Mary, Portland, St. Thomas, all across Jamaica, Clarendon, Manchester. We're going to make every single part of Jamaica a beautiful space for we, the Jamaican people, to enjoy, and for us to share that with a tourist population that will be 4 times what we receive now because of the quality and the product that we provide. That's going to lift our income tremendously. And that income is going to stay here. It's going to be a part of our economy, not a flow through to somebody else's economy. We're going to invest in renewable energy and water harvesting to ensure we have food, water, and energy security as a buffer that protects us from the kind of inflationary pains that other countries try to export around the rest of the world. We are going to build a resilient Jamaica. A Jamaica where everybody around the world will want to come to live because we're such a free country, free, safe, clean, orderly, beautiful, not just our natural beauty, but cared for beauty, manicured beauty, because we're going to have pride in our country, pride in our public spaces, pride in the blessing that God has given us on this beautiful island. We have everything Singapore wished they had in terms of space and resources, and yet still we have done so much below what they have done. We have to change that now. And so when we meet on June 10th at Mandela Park, 4 p.m., we're going to have music, yes. We're going to have entertainment, yes. But most importantly, we're going to hear a clear plan of action as to how we're going to move Jamaica from third world to first world. How we're going to exceed the Singapore experience. how we're going to bring good governance to our country, how we're going to unite the nation, how we're going to liberate the nation, how we're going to empower the nation, how we're going to create a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. My friends, we're going to make Jamaica one of, if not the safest, cleanest, and most orderly society on the planet. As the world moves very fast towards less individual freedom, we're going to make Jamaica the freest nation on earth, where your individual sovereignty is fully and unequivocally protected from even the government. This will be a real new Jamaica. So I invite you, join hands with me in the UIC and help us to create one Jamaica, strong and free. We can do this. We must not be deterred. And I look forward to seeing you all May 10th, Mandela Park, 4 p.m. Sorry, did I say May 10th? So my wife is over there. She's cooking and she's listening. So June 10th, not May 10th, 4 p.m., Mandela Park. What's for dinner, by the way? Yes, my friends, June 10th, 4 p.m., Mandela Park. Don't miss it. We cannot afford to allow these guys to get away with what they have done. Enough is enough. We the people, Rise Up Rally, Saturday, June 10th, 4 p.m. Come see, come hear, come listen, participate. Enjoy the music, enjoy the friendship, enjoy the unity. Get to meet all your leaders, get to meet our candidates, and most importantly, get clarity for yourself and why it is you're going to elect the UIC at the next election. Why is it you're going to choose to be a candidate if you're qualified and competent to be one? Why is it you're going to volunteer and donate to the movement? Because you understand that the UIC is your party. The UIC are FIWI. The other two parties on the FIWI, them belong to the colonial masters and to the PSOJ oligarchy. But the UIC is you and me. The UIC a FIWI party. We own it. Let's make sure we use it and maximize it to take back our country. Take care, have a good evening, and all the best. One Jamaica, stronger together.